The following podcast has some naughty words, and we also spoil a whole lot of shit. Be warned.
Hi, and welcome back to the Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Julie.
I'm Diana.
And we are discussing Fear the Walking Dead Season 2, Episode 4, Blood in the Streets?
Blood on the streets?
Blood on the Streets?
I think I wrote blood on the streets. We'll check. Anyway.
Anyways, Diana, what did you think about the episode?
Great episode. Lots of really great backup information. Like the flashbacks were great. It really helped. You know, we'll get into that when we talk about the episode details a little more. But we got a little bit of we got some Strand backstory, which was fantastic. I just love in general, can I just say, whenever Walking Dead or Fear, this is their first backstory, but I've always loved any kind of drama that can do a really good, compelling backstory. You know, I thought Lost did a really good job with that stuff too, but you know, Walking Dead did a really good job as well.
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm enjoying it. We're getting more things answered.
Yeah.
You know, they gave us a lot of questions in those first couple of episodes, and now things are kind of starting to, you know, reveal themselves, and it's starting to make sense. It's starting to click.
Right.
So I enjoyed it for that. It was a very intriguing episode. Right. Not that, you know, the end of it was a little crazy, but otherwise the episode itself wasn't too dramatic, too crazy. There wasn't a bunch of dialogue.
If by crazy you mean awesome.
But yeah, no, you can go ahead and start us off there, Diana.
Yeah, absolutely. We open and it's, water. Kidding. It's obviously a beach. There's some wave action going on. It's nighttime. We come upon Nick swimming in the water. It's really, if you watched the clips, the sneak peeks
from Talking
Dead last week, it's that scene. It's right in the that's totally the opening of the show. So Nick is swimming towards the beach. He gets to the beach, and he was dragging behind him his clothes, or was dragging behind him a plastic bag that had stuff in it. It turned out to be clothes. He gets onto the beach, and he gets dressed, and he starts moving toward, there's some type of barrier and fence there, and then when he sort of turns around, you can see that there's the barrier that's in the water is more like a break wall kind of, so a little more sturdy, like steel, and then there's like a chain link fence that's up, and he approaches the fence, and on the other side of the fence there's this really eerie tent town,
like
with
tent city on the ground
spelled out, really
eerie, totally looks vacant,
and the way that the wind is coming off of the ocean and stuff like that, it's just like whipping the tents around. It's really, really creepy. It was really well shot. I just loved that scene. So as they Nick is moving through the tents, and then looking here and there, and it's hard to figure out sort of what he's doing. If he's looking for something, or if he's hiding. I mean, we don't know where he is to begin with, so it's confusing to know like what his end game is at first.
Yeah, we don't know why he's there. Is this a flash forward? Is this a flashback? We're really confused. And then we see that walker with the bite on the leg, and you're like, okay, so not a flashback.
Yeah, clearly present.
But still, what's going on? Where is he? Where's everybody else?
Right, and what is he doing? Because then it gets even more confusing, because then he takes this like plastic bottle,
he starts
banging
and he makes
on noise he's making noise to sort of draw something out at first, which, you know, we've seen that behavior in the past. You come up upon an abandoned house, the first thing you do is knock on the doors and the windows to see if there's any dead inside.
Right.
So he's doing the same thing. He's making some noise, trying to draw something out. And so that made sense at first, but then when he sees that there's a walker and then he throws the bottle, it distracts the walker. But then he starts walking away in a way that he wants the walker to follow him. So it was so confusing.
Yeah, I was confused too.
So it gets wrapped up pretty quickly. He finds a tent. He unzips, gets himself inside. And by the way, creepy side note, did you realize the lamp was on inside the tent?
I did.
So creepy. Yep. So, I mean, we can get back to that. But anyway, so he unzips, he goes inside the tent. The walker comes up to the screened portion of the tent. He sort of grabs it by the throat, and he does, do a headshot, a kill shot, but he does hang on.
He does before he does.
And they made that point on Talking Dead.
Yeah.
He's very intrigued.
He is.
He feels almost like this odd kinship with the dead. So it was just interesting to see him sort of, most people would grab and just, plunge.
Yeah.
He grabbed and observed for a second.
And he was so observing in the previous episode on the beach. When he was doused in walker blood, he walks right up to that walker and just kind of like snarls with them and looks in his eyes, and he's observing. And again, he does it. He grabs his face and he just holds them there for a second before killing him.
Yeah.
And I thought that, I was like, that was a weird way to kill a walker. Yeah. And then he pulls him into the tent. Yeah. I'm like, is he going to pull a Rick?
Yeah, I didn't understand what he was doing when he pulled it in. I was like, what is going on? So until he plunges the knife or the blunt object into the stomach and he starts pulling out. And then it's obvious that he's going to spread the blood all over himself. And use the scent mask out, which I love. And the fact that they've used it 2 episodes in a row just like so excites me. I'm like, dude, just embrace it. Embrace the spreading of the blood all over yourself.
I thought it was funny on, I think, Talking Dead, he said, Nick pulled a Rick, but Nick came first, so really, Rick's been pulling Nick.
I know. Nickety Rick, Nick. We don't know. So he spreads the blood over himself, and then he heads out. It's like he's got a mission. So.
And then it cuts to Travis and Maddie they're talking about Strand. Travis is real upset that Strand cut Alex and Jake loose.
Yeah.
That, he kept saying they weren't a threat and everything like that. But they start disagreeing on what level of trust they should give Strand and how much, give there should be. And I find it really interesting that Maddie says, but he hasn't lied to us.
Which is true.
And I had to think about that for a minute because he's deceptive, but he hasn't lied.
Yeah.
And I had to think, like, has he? No.
He's more of a don't tell the lied. He's more of a he holds it all to his chest.
Right.
And just doesn't tell you the whole story.
Right.
As opposed to lying.
So I found that it was true. I found it really interesting. And then after that, we cut to Ophelia and Chris. They're having a conversation. Chris talking about his past and asking Ophelia about. They start talking. I think Chris asks Ophelia, "Have you been to Mexico?"
Right.
And she said no. That once they got settled, they never went anywhere really.
Yeah.
And she. She thought that her parents needed her protecting. Come to find out,
they really,
don't.
Yeah.
And then we learn a little bit about Chris, and he had a girlfriend, and seemed pretty not so much upset that she was gone because they were only dating for a few months, but more so upset that like he's young and no one to really. And Ophelia tries. There's still girls in this world.
Which I'm glad they went with that because if she'd gone with there's other fish in the sea, it would have been terrible. I mean, that would have been a badly placed joke. That's for sure.
But while they're talking, they see a raft coming up towards them, and they're screaming, "Help us! Help us!" And I love how Chris, should I shoot them? He actually asks. Twice, I think. Should I shoot them?
It feels like several times. I feel like he just kept asking, and I was like,
no one's answering him.
It's like,
I feel like he was
someone answer Chris. Should I shoot them?
Dad, should I shoot them? Screams for his dad. It just went back and forth. Oh my God, it's
hilarious.
But because of their hesitation, these people just climb right on board. They're screaming that something's wrong with her baby, and then Travis and Maddie come running.
Yep.
Maddie just instantly helps Ophelia getting that girl out of the raft.
Absolutely.
And just brings her right inside. Like, no question to it, just does it.
She saw it, and it was, there was blood coming down her leg, so it was like it's pretty
obvious. They were bleeding,
obvious.
and that's what they were saying. She's bleeding. There's something wrong with the baby. So they definitely made it look like she was probably miscarrying or going into labor and something was wrong or something along those lines.
And why do we say made it look like, Julie?
We'll get to that later. But yeah, so Strand instantly goes to go, like, he kind of looks. He sees that there's people on the boat. He hears people, turns around, goes for his gun, and Daniel stole the clip out of Strand's gun.
Daniel.
That was hilarious. And then Jack starts talking, and Alicia goes, Jack?
Yeah.
Which was, I think, on everybody's mind, right? Like, it's these three people, 2 men and a woman.
Yep.
And that's kind of how Jack had described them.
Right.
So, and of course, Alicia recognized his voice. They had been talking for hours, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. So Alicia says Jack, and it kind of just, they attack.
Yeah,
they
all
pounce.
hell broke loose all at once.
They tie everyone up, but they start calling everyone by their names. They know everyone's names.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So, and even Daniel's like, asks Alicia, because somehow they get Alicia to tie everybody up. Or to help tie them up, because Jack is all for Alicia, kind of in love with her right now. And he wants her to be safe, so he asks her to tie people up, so she does, even though Maddie protests. She's like, no, I'm fine. It's cool.
Right.
So she's tying Daniel up, and Daniel goes, how do they know our names, Alicia? And she's like, I don't know. We didn't talk about that.
Right.
And I believe her.
Right.
I do believe that Alicia did not. I know that she gave her name.
Yeah.
And I would definitely find it plausible that she gave Maddie and Travis's name,
right?
Just because they're her, parent figures.
But she was guarded about other stuff, like, because he even pointedly was like, "You said it's a boat, but it's not a yacht, but it's not your yacht. So whose yacht is it?" Or he said something along those lines, like. And she didn't go there. Like, she felt like it was too much information. So there's no way that she used Strand's name. And if she wasn't going to talk about Strand, I doubt she would have brought up Daniel and Ophelia and whatever.
Yeah. I don't see her doing that.
Yeah.
And then they notice someone's getting away in, like, a raft, and they shoot at it a couple of times. They don't know if they got him or not. And at first they don't show you who it is that's in that raft.
Yeah.
And you don't know in what timeline that beginning part with Nick was. So
so you think it could be Nick,
that's why he was swimming naked to shore, or was it Strand abandoning ship since he didn't have his gun? He couldn't do anything, so he's like, I'm out. Peace.
Peace out. No gun. Bye bye.
Right. So it kind of left us a little wondering. And then we hit a flashback.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Great
First flashback of the season.
Yep.
So, and it's exactly who you want to see.
Yep.
Strand. So awesome. So it opens with, the flashback opens with, instead of seeing him, you see that, that it's prior to, because it's a news footage scene of Hurricane Katrina aftermath with all the water. And then it's sort of,
Great way to show time, right?
I know. As soon as it's funny because when I was forwarding through commercials and got to there, I was like, wait, is that a commercial? Or is that because it's Katrina? Oh, nope, flashback.
I was confused.
So they show the TV screen first, and then they sort of pan out, and they show that Strand is at a bar with a businessman sort of sitting next to him, and they get talking about different things, and he says at one point, Strand comes out with the info that he's from there.
Yeah.
And because they were discussing business and things like that, and he just comes out with, I don't have anything because everything I own. He's like pointing to the TV. He's like indicating and saying everything I own is now underwater.
Yep.
I've lost everything.
Yep.
Which was so interesting to hear because he just, where he is now in the story is this, this
you
suave,
perceive him in a different way.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Together businessman. So we get a couple of details out of his from his personal life. He talks about, asks about his mom, and he said his mother wasn't around. which explains a lot. But even more so, he says that his father was a strip mall preacher, which as well explains a lot as well. You
absolutely.
know, they made a good point on Talking Dead where they were talking about, you know, Yvette Nicole Brown said that, you know, the theatricality and stuff like that of a strip mall preacher.
Yep.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
That told me everything I needed to know about the character.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're talking about themselves, a little bit of business here and there, and then eventually they get drunk, and it cuts from the bar, and it shows Strand bringing this guy back to his room, and you know, putting him really softly sort of down on the bed, and he takes his shoes off. Yeah,
first.
that's really like, you know, I was going to say suave, but I really meant soft. Like, it was a soft thing for him to do, you know. Took the shoes off, then he sits him up, takes the jacket off.
Yeah.
For a hot second, I was like, is he going to... Because he made a comment about his tie. Remember, at the bar,
Right.
he made a comment about how his tie... Because he was wearing, like, a really bright pink tie, and he had, like, a kind of royal blue shirt on underneath. And so... I honestly thought my most initial thing was that Strand was going to take his jacket because he really needed a new suit. I mean, and he admitted he had nothing.
Right.
So Strand takes his shoes off, like I was saying, and he also takes off the jacket and sort of like folds it nicely, sets it aside, and lets him back down onto the bed, and his next step is to actually check the pockets.
Yep.
So he sticks his hand inside the breast pocket, and that's when the businessman guy, what does he say?
Maybe I won't remember.
Maybe I won't remember. God, what a great line. He's like, maybe I won't remember. And and Strand just like smiles at him, and he takes the cards and he leaves.
Yep.
So yeah, that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah. So big change. So the flashback ends, and then we jump right back onto the boat. And Reed, who is the other guy, there's two guys that come on. There's Jack, who Alicia knew, and Reed is the other guy.
Right.
So Reed starts asking about the keys for the boat. Where are the keys to the boat? And he hits Chris. Which then gets everybody, you know, tense and like, oh, God, you know, cut it out.
Right.
He's looking for those keys, and finally, this goes back and forth for a little bit, and then finally Travis is like, Strand has the keys. And it's a shame that he didn't call him a dummy. He's like, he's the one you shot, dummy. But then Travis, to sort of save the situation, jumps in, and he says, but I have the skills. I can start the boat
without
the keys.
Right.
Which I'm not sure if he could or not, but he could at least kill time or do something.
And
you know
I think
what
that's
I mean?
what he
was
at
thinking.
First thought. Like, I may not be able to do this. I actually have no idea. But let's give it a try, because if anything, this will give us some time to think of something.
Let's give it a whirl.
Yeah.
And you can sort of tell because, you know, as time goes on, like there's some, you know, killing of time.
Yeah,
you can sort of tell, but
yeah.
some of it feels like he's genuinely like, this is high tech. I don't know. Yeah. So he says that he can start the boat without the keys. He can get it going. And then Reed tells Jack to take Alicia, and he wants him to go find the CB that she was using where they communicated before, because he wants Reed to reach out to Connor and let him know the status of where they are. So they walk away, and Alicia immediately confronts Jack. How could you? How could you, Jack? Which I was just like, ugh, she's so 16. But she like immediately is like, she's like, how did she even word it? I think she says, how could you fool me like that? Or you could, you know, how could you, I don't know, did she say how could you lead me on? I don't think she says it like that, but it's like that type of thing, like how dare you and whatever. And he basically says, that he was just doing his job, and that he's not a fan. He doesn't like hurting anyone. That's not his thing.
Right.
And then he tells Alicia that Connor is, he seems like Connor is like their leader, and he says that Connor actually likes him and will listen to him.
Right.
So he can try and get Connor to not hurt anybody for them.
Right.
So, yeah.
So then we're back to Nick. He's walking around on full-on zombie mode is what I put in my notes. Completely covered, Then he comes up to this walker, and he starts to try to walk like the walker.
Yeah.
So he's like I put in my notes, he's full on zombie mode. He's straight up, he looks like one, he is acting like one, he's walking like one. And the walker pays absolutely no attention to him and just walks away. So,
yeah.
And Nick just kind of walks his head shakes his head and moves on, and it takes out this piece of paper and it has an address on it.
Yeah.
It was really bloodied up because of all the blood on him. And I couldn't quite read the writing, but I got the gist of it. He's fine. He's looking for an address, and it looks very much like Strand sent him on this mission.
It's starting to seem that way.
Right. Yeah. So then we get another Strand flashback.
Yep.
He's in a nice hotel. There's a knock on the door, and he says something like "No, thank you," or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the knocks persist.
Not now.
Yeah. And the knocks persist. So he opens the door, and it's a Hispanic man. He just smiles at him at first, and then the businessman that he robbed is right there.
Yeah.
And he introduces himself as Thomas Abigail.
And everybody on the internet went, oh.
Yeah, my brain went ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, and everybody was
Abigail?
like, that means the boat isn't named for we don't know yet if it's named for a wife or a daughter or whatever. It could still be
I just
the
think
reason
that's self-centered.
Yeah.
Big Abigail family. That's what they...
Yeah, exactly.
So,
exactly.
And then his associate, Luis Flores.
Mm-hmm.
So... He comes into the room. They confront him a little bit about the theft. Asks him so how much money did you get? I believe Strand says $36,000.
Yep.
And he asks him what'd you do with the money? And Strand says that he purchased credit card debt, just like that's how he started before. Luis does not like him. He keeps making comments about how he stole from Thomas.
Yeah. He can't believe that Thomas is being nice to him.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And Strand says once he's flush that he was going to pay Thomas back. That he had every intention of doing so, and Thomas is like, with interest, and he's like, of course, of course, with interest.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Right.
And then since he didn't take cash, he took something that was totally traceable, that he was willing to kind of make a deal with him.
Yeah, it was obvious that his intention was, come and find me. I'm not hiding from you.
There was no intention of Strand to hide.
Yeah, exactly.
And I did notice Yvette did mention something that she doesn't think this was just the next day. She thinks this was a couple of days later.
Oh, yeah. You can tell.
I agree with that because he's got a different suit, and I think he wasn't surprised to see this man. It was almost like, oh, you finally found me, kind of thing.
Right.
And if he had still been in the same hotel the next day and the guy tracked him down, I think maybe that wouldn't have gone quite as, Yeah,
exactly.
And they were, Luis was talking about too, how he canceled credit cards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I do believe this was a couple days later, if not maybe a few weeks.
Yeah.
But then Strand thanks him for the pardon, and Thomas says, I didn't pardon you, I obligated you.
Such a great line.
Great line.
Right, and I didn't even remember it, but during Talking Dead, they had the callback that he said the exact same thing
to Nick.
Yeah.
I remembered it. The whole I obligated you stood out in my head so much, and I remembered him saying that to Nick when he got him out.
Yeah.
Or... was it right when he got him out? No, it's when he saved him from being taken out.
I was going to say, I don't remember him saying it at all.
Yeah, he's like, why did you save me? And I think he said, I didn't save you, I obligated you. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was very interesting.
Such a great choice of words, too. And specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting to see how these two kind of met and kind of got into business with each other.
Exactly.
They started doing they were both big businessmen, and I don't think Thomas could kind of shoot down the opportunity to do business with someone who was quite as he was thrifty.
I mean, if you think about it, and he was very, it's bold.
Yeah.
Like, he took a chance, he saw an opening, and he took it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they talked about, which sort of relates back to the title of the episode, when they were first met and they were first talking, was they were talking about some of his business practices were very predatory, that he would go in after like a bad event or something like that and capitalize on it.
Right.
Which a lot of that's where that title, the wording "Blood on the Streets" come from, is a lot of that has to do with sort of taking advantage of a bad situation. And here he saw sort of a compadre who was like, Strand was in a rough spot. He took advantage of a situation, but he did it in a way where he did it in kind of a classy way, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So I think he respected him, and he was definitely intrigued by him.
Oh, absolutely intrigued by him.
And how could you not?
Tell
He's so
right
charming.
away.
Yeah, he's good at it.
Well, you could tell right away, even at the bar, that Thomas Abigail was 100% intrigued with Strand.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And then this just gave him a reason to be even more intrigued.
Yeah,
with
now
him.
I get to come find you.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So, so we get out of that scene, and then we're back on the boat.
Back on the boat.
Feeling in our episode descriptions is literally like, back on the boat, back on the boat, back on the boat. So here we are, back on the Abigail.
The yacht.
And Maddie sort of whispers over to Daniel and asks if it's possible for him to break free.
Yeah.
Could we break out? And Daniel tells her, just distract the woman. So Maddie starts asking the girl who, I don't think we got her name.
I think it was Vita.
Maybe,
I
yeah.
heard one of them say it once.
I'd have to go back
someone
and check.
said it once, and I think, anybody correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I heard Vita.
So pregnant girl, possibly Vita. So Maddie starts asking her questions because she's the only one that's sort of keeping track of them right now, because Jack is with Alicia and Reed is with Travis, who's in the who's working on getting the boat started.
Yeah.
And so the pregnant girl was left with all of them, and they were all tied up anyway, so it's not like they'd overpower her. Anyway, so Maddie starts engaging her, asking her real pointed questions about her pregnancy.
Yep. It starts getting real dark.
It does get a little dark. Her first, you can sort of see where she's going. It's like she's trying to get a rise and like, but also she's trying to engage her in conversation and get a rise out of her. Because at first it's just like, when are you due? And, do you know this, that, and the other? It's your first child.
Yeah.
And then, Maddie talks from a place of experience about how, the first one was this and it was hard this way, and you go to full term with the first, and, sort of like two girlfriends chatting about pregnancy. And then she's like, yeah, when's the last time you felt it move? And you're like, what? What? Like,
that
she
is
just
a
like
loaded
took
question.
This is like a dark turn right off the bat.
Well, and
like,
she's just automatically, I'm on the move a lot, so.
Right. So it wouldn't matter. And
Yeah.
she's very defensive right off the bat, which means I wonder if she hasn't felt anything in a little bit. Because she asked her about prenatal vitamins, are you taking them? And she's like, where am I going to get them? And what have you. So it's a very interesting scene.
I think my favorite part, though, was how Ophelia automatically just chimes in like, what would happen?
Right.
Like, she's just like...
Yeah, because they start talking about, like, when Maddie brings up the whole thing about, have you felt it move and whatever. And she was like, well, it's almost like Maddie brings it up, drops that bomb there. Then she turns to Ophelia and she's like, well, I don't know. I mean, would it turn in her belly? Like, she and Ophelia have like a side conversation while this pregnant girl's like eyes are like, what the fuck? Like, they're talking about me having zombie baby like in my presence, but not like to me. Right. And then Ophelia's like, oh, I don't know. And da-da-da. So they like go off on their own little tangent. Meanwhile, the rest of us are watching him. We're like, son of a bitch. Maddie, hardcore.
Although that is something that I have wondered about. I wondered about it when Lori was pregnant in Walking Dead.
I bet a lot of people have. Like, what do you do? Like, oh my God, I don't. Would it be? Never mind. We'll go down. We'll go down that path. So anyway, while that's going on, Travis is down in the engine room with Reed, and you can tell. This is when you can start to tell that he's stalling for time. Mm-hmm. He's sort of looking behind him. He's looking at stuff. He's over-explaining the stuff that he's doing. He's filling time. But you can also see the camera shows that he something goes up his sleeve, and you can't tell what it is,
Yeah.
but it's something like almost like a piece of metal, like a metal rod or something. So he's clearly trying to put something aside for a weapon of some kind, which is great.
I was afraid he was going to use it right there. I'm like, not the time.
Yeah.
Not the time, Travis.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Exactly. I mean, although if he could have taken him over, Reed had a gun, so he could have like come upstairs with the gun,
True.
whatever. But you also don't want the gun to go off in the engine room. I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of things to think
Exactly.
about. So then it cuts over to Jack. He's using the CB. He calls Connor. Connor says that he's en route. He sounds very, he asks if everybody's there and accounted for.
And is your girl there?
Is your girl there?
Yeah.
Ugh. Creepy. And then Jack explains a little bit about Connor, says that he saved him and that he enjoys doing this. But Alicia replies that being here with Strand wasn't much better. So she asks Jack if anything he said was true, and Jack offers come with him.
Yeah.
And I think Alicia, since she just made that comment about being with Strand, the circumstances, like if you look around, yeah, it looks really nice, but being with Strand has been really stressful, etc. He has been kind of dictator-ish, to be fair. Although I think at this point she's kind of playing a role. I think
she's playing him.
She's playing him, and
she doesn't trust him.
Yeah.
She realizes how much
sizing him.
Well,
yeah.
And she realizes how into her he is.
Yeah.
So I think she's playing on that. I think she's using that to her advantage.
Yeah.
And I honestly think at this point right now, Alicia would probably say, yes, I will come with you if you promise me my parents will be safe.
Right.
Because she's so worried about them.
Yeah, so she sort of does that. Jack asks her if she wants to go. Alicia says, my family has to come too.
Right.
So Jack says he can work it out so that they'll be safe. Mm-hmm. He cuts her, she's tied up behind her back. He cuts her hands free. And then there's like a pregnant pause where you're like, what is she going to do? And in my head, I was like, oh my God, kiss him, because that'll totally make this. And she comes
just
close.
kind of seal it.
Yeah, but it comes close. She gives him a big hug, which is great because it's this embrace, but you can see her face, and you can see that she's not like super like Fatal Attraction calculating, but she's definitely,
you can see the worry in her face.
She's a little worried, but you can also see there's a little bit of planning. She's thinking about what's the next step going to be.
Yeah.
What'll I do like when this Connor shows up and they make that call.
I thought the scene was really good because you could see that Jack was totally into it. Mm-hmm. Like he just grabbed her and he hugged her back, and then they kind of pan around and you see Alicia and her face of planning and worry, and it wasn't this like, oh my God, thank you so much hug. It was
She was
yeah.
It was good.
Yeah, so I thought that was good because she was starting to scare me at first, but once I saw that face, it kind of sealed the deal for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, then we were back to Nick.
Yeah.
On shore, he's playing with a basketball, dribbling it around, and I'm pretty sure I said out loud, "You're being dumb, dude."
Right.
They're attracted to noise. And then James did mention, like, well, maybe he's feeling a little invincible at this moment.
Right.
Like, there's nothing he can do to get any sort of attention because he's completely covered. He's literally invisible right now.
So it's almost like he's testing the boundaries of how much noise can I make before.
Right.
Yeah.
Which was
interesting.
interesting.
It's pretty deserted there. Like,
it was very deserted
like
there.
No walkers around at all.
So he finds the address he was looking for and he knocks on the door. Mm-hmm. And pop comes Luis behind him with a gun. Threatening him.
Yeah. Like, who are you? Where are you from? Who are you?
And then Nick's like, oh, Strand sent me. It's cool. I'm here because of Strand, and pulls out his note to prove it. And then, they're talking a little bit. Luis starts packing up his really, really expensive, nice car, and then mentions to Nick that he is not getting in it with all the blood on him. And Nick goes, what's the point? Is it coming onto the boat with us?
Right.
Which was such a smart ass
right.
comment. And Luis is like, doesn't matter.
Right.
So he made Nick go inside and clean up so that he didn't get anything all over his and he
ends up in nice new clothes.
He does.
He
has nice clothes on.
For the first time.
Yeah, that's not old grandpa
old man clothes or bloody captain's outfit. Yes.
And then we're back on the boat again. Maddie starts to really get under the skin of this pregnant lady.
Yeah.
Because she pours herself a drink.
Right.
And Maddie goes, one drink now and then won't hurt the baby. And you can, which is hilarious because they were just contemplating the fact that maybe the baby's not even alive.
Your baby might be dead. Drink all the whiskey you would like. Whee!
And then, oh no, one drink won't hurt the baby.
Right.
And then, so Travis comes back up from the engine room to go to the wheelhouse, and they kind of pause. Everyone pauses to talk for a couple of minutes because Reed asks, I think her name's Vita, if she's okay, and Vita says she's just trying to get under my skin, and Reed's like, trying to.
Yeah, because it's obvious that like she's upset.
Right,
like you can tell on her face she's upset.
So that pause gives Travis a couple of minutes to put a couple of these bars, crowbars or something, behind the padding of the seat I think Ophelia's on.
Yep.
Before Reed pulls him away and brings him into that wheelhouse.
And I can't remember. I know he was doing a lot of like looking at Daniel. Daniel was doing a lot of eye acting, I like to call it. He's literally like, I can't move. I'm going to tell you everything I need to. I'm just going to move my eyes around and show you. So I can't remember if Daniel sees him put them in there.
I don't think so.
Someone
think
does,
Maddie
though.
Caught it.
Yeah.
I think
someone
Maddie
catches him do that because I know he's trying to do it
in a subtle, not so subtle way.
I would assume for himself he was putting them there so that they wouldn't catch them on him.
Right.
But the fact that someone caught him do it is great because now they know, okay, if there's something in there, he put something there for them.
It's possible Daniel saw it because he was sitting like on the floor and he could kind of see like up at the angle that Travis was doing things, but Maddie was sitting right across.
Just directly across,
So it's possible she just caught eye of it. But yeah, so they walk away, and then it cuts. We're back on land with Nick and Louise. They head out. Louise starts kind of explaining this deal between Strand and him and Thomas, and how it's only two people can get across the border. And Nick's really confused, and he, there's 7 of us, and Luis is like, 7 of you ain't coming.
Right.
Like, that's not happening. Which is interesting, and I'm intrigued by this so much because there's still borders. Like, there's still people patrolling this shit. Like, what's going on?
What intrigues me about this is that Luis then says that he's only got enough money for 2. Right?
So he's bribing someone to get them over.
With what? Money that has no use anymore? I mean, and what's funny is, like, we know that now. But I think at this time, and that just shows, like, there was still this hope that, like, things will change. Things will get better. Something's got to change. Something's got to be fixed.
It was interesting, though, because when Nick swims up on land at the beginning of this episode, there is helicopters and boats and lights in the ocean.
Right.
And on The Talking Dead, the guy who plays Strand explains that that's to show that
the border.
That's the border.
Yeah.
So has Mexico not fallen yet? Are they still in the midst of containing this outbreak? Or
it'll be interesting to see because Mexico and some Central and South American countries have such like dictatorships with like guerrillas and stuff like that. They have such a like the sensibility is like the military is mostly in charge. So maybe, as crazy as it seems, like maybe someplace like Mexico or Honduras or El Salvador was better equipped to handle something like this, because instead of just throwing their military at a situation, which we would do, we'd send in our military. Their military's already there. Like they're already running the show. So as soon as like the shit started to hit the fan, they immediately were like, no. So I'm curious to see if maybe their governments are still sort of running in those some of those countries. I mean, eventually it's not going to work, but at least in the beginning, when things were starting to fall apart for us, perhaps they just had a better guerrilla tactic, like just in place.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I'm super, I mean, obviously there's something still there. They've got boats and helicopters, shit's still going on in Mexico, right at that border. So, I mean, maybe they will need some sort of bargaining chip or power in order to get anybody into Mexico. But I'm definitely excited to see what happens.
To see what it is, yeah.
But yeah, and then we have another flashback.
Yep. So this flashback is it's a quick one. It's basically just Strand and Thomas are they're lounging in the sun, and they're talking about a possible land deals, a type of business deal, and Thomas is against it. He's hesitant. He's mostly talking about his only goal is wherever it is that they're at, and I'm gonna assume
it's someplace in Mexico.
It's this place in Mexico that they're heading to, the Rosarita, and all Thomas is talking about is all I need in life is here. This is the most comfortable place. I don't need these other things that Strand was talking about. And Strand, he's a businessman. He wants to do this deal that he's talking about, but you could see that he sort of senses where the wall is, and he gives up, and he just lets it go. And it's interesting. This woman comes in, this older Hispanic woman, taking care of Thomas, and tells him, you're going to burn. And she puts a shirt on him. And Strand asks her at the very beginning of the scene, did Luis make it to L.A. or whatever? And she's very clipped and short with him. She's like, yes. So when she leaves, Strand's like, she doesn't like me. So this is, we're pretty sure this is Luis's mother. I'm pretty sure that they said that at some point that Luis's mother, because she was more or less taking care of Thomas in kind of a maid/housekeepery way, it felt like. But I don't want to assume that. I felt like they had said that it was Luis's mother, but I might be wrong.
I don't remember anything, and I got the vibe that it was Thomas's mother, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't catch anything.
I mean, she was speaking Spanish.
She was.
So, but that doesn't mean anything. He could have, his mother could be Spanish. We don't know.
Right.
We're inclusive here at the Aim for the Head podcast. And by no means assume that just because she was Hispanic that she was a maid. It was definitely her posture and how she was sort of taking care of
how she spoke to him.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I get that.
Yeah. So...
But
so that's that little flashback.
Travis actually ends up getting the engine started.
I know. Amazing.
He got a jack of all trades, man.
Seriously.
He can just kind of do a little bit of everything.
He's a keeper.
Yeah. And just as that happens, Connor gets there. Connor is the one that they've been talking to. Reed and Jack have been communicating with, and seems like he is the head of the operation, the pirate operation.
Yeah.
And Connor ends up, they end up telling Connor, oh, he got this boat started. And obviously Jack is like head over heels for Alicia at this moment. Yeah. So Connor mentions that he wants to take both Travis and Alicia because they are of use to him.
They're valuable.
Right. Yeah. Well, at least Travis is. Travis seems to be able to do some things, and Alicia, hot wiring a very expensive yacht I don't think would be easy.
Yeah.
And he was able to do it.
And I think Alicia was just sort of included because Connor wanted her to come and talk
Jack
her
wanted, up. Jack wanted her to come. Yeah.
That's what I meant to say.
Well, and I think, and Jack has mentioned that Connor and him get along, so it's possible that Connor's like, yeah, you find yourself something that you want and you can have it, So, yeah, an argument kind of ensues because they're taking Travis and Alicia. So
only
Maddie
two and everybody's behind,
and, Travis is like, don't worry about it. Just calm down. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Connor agrees to send the rest of them to shore so that they could be safe, and they'll just take the Abigail and be on their way. So they put hoods over Alicia and Travis's heads and take off pretty much. Reed starts talking about how his brother's he's a good guy, he's smart and everything, but he doesn't have the stomach for doing other things.
Right, which is why he probably left.
Right.
Yeah.
So when there looks to be no hope left, so Connor leaves the redhead lady behind another guy. They're both out on like the deck of the boat.
Yep.
And then Reed inside. I'm assuming, I didn't even see her go, but Vita, the pregnant lady, must have
gone with them, yeah.
And Reed is just kind of, he's got his gun, he's playing with it, he's drinking the scotch or whatever the fuck that was.
Yeah.
And pretty much talking about how this is where it ends for them. Maddie's like, no, just take us to shore. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
And he's like, why? So you guys can come back and get this boat? No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah, and
Nick
then we
and-
just sort of like flip over to like while that argument's going on, then you see Nick and Luis are coming up. They're in their like motorized raft there, and they're chugging along really fast. Luis is driving, and Nick is looking through the binoculars, and they're coming up fast towards the Abigail. And then Nick says that he sees people. He's like, "There's people I don't know, and they've got guns." This is obviously Connor's crew. And then Luis is like, "Are you sure those aren't your people? You don't know them?" And he's like, "Yes." And he's like, "You steer." So they flip out. Nick starts to steer the boat, and then you see Luis. Like sort of down on the ground, zips open one of the bags and takes out this really, really sweet high-powered rifle.
Yeah.
And he takes that, takes aim, and starts taking
Headshot.
out Connor's crew. And I think there was only 3 left behind.
Yeah, it was the redheaded girl, the guy, and then Reed.
And then Reed. So he takes out the 2, nameless, faceless, didn't have any lines.
Yep.
Sorry. So they're out, and then the rest of the group, as soon as those shots happen, the rest of the group springs into action.
Yep.
So Reed freaks out. He kind of walks right past Daniel to see what the hell's going on. And Daniel takes his gun. Ophelia then jumps in, and she pushes him into the wall.
Yeah.
And then Maddie reaches over. She grabs that crowbar, and she drives it right through Reed.
It was a great scene.
Great shot.
It happened so fast, but it was so good. They all worked so well together.
Yeah, it was almost like they silently made a plan.
Right.
It was fantastic. And they're right after that happened, they're just sort of standing around for like a half second, and the next thing you know, Nick and Luis come aboard, but Luis comes first, so they're automatically like, "Who the hell is this?" And then Nick's
guns
like,
are pointed at each
and then
other.
Nick's like, "It's me." So they get up on the Abigail. There's hugs, etc., and they let Luis know that Strand left, and then they start talking about what their next step is. And Daniel is quick to say, because, he's not such a fan, Daniel's quick to say that they don't need Strand.
They don't need him.
Right. And Luis jumps in, and he's basically point blank, no one gets into Mexico without Strand.
Him. Yep.
So that kind of, writing's on the wall. It's got to be him. So Maddie is in there, and she's insisting that they have to try and find Travis and Alicia.
Right.
Yeah.
So we do one more quick flashback.
Yeah, quickie.
Thomas and Strand are talking in a room, and Strand's getting ready to leave. He needs to get to L.A. to close on something, he says, and Thomas says it's not safe. You shouldn't go. Just stay here. We're assuming that the virus must have already been maybe talked about.
Yeah, maybe
or
some
something,
closures of some kind. He's definitely some kind of safety issues.
Yeah, something's going on in LA, and we're pretty sure that's why Strand ends up where we find him at the end of the first season.
Yep.
Strand insists that he's going to go. Thomas says that he loves Strand, and Strand says he'll be right back. And then they have a kiss.
They do.
Back to present day, Maddie's in I believe they call it a Zodiac, that boat.
That's right. I kept forgetting. I got to write that down.
Maddie's in the Zodiac, finds Strand in the water. I love this scene because Strand's just kind of floating. He's shivering because of the hypothermia. He barely move. He can't do anything. And so you see just this look on his face of him being completely helpless. For the first time since we've met Strand, he needs help from somebody. And Maddie kind of just sits there for a second, just a real quick, like, millisecond, and then reaches her hand out for him. Obviously, they must save him, but that's where the scene cuts, and that's where the episode cuts.
Yeah.
But I really like that scene, and I thought it was interesting that it was Maddie.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see anyone else on the boat. Maddie went and
No,
found
yeah,
Strand.
Maddie went by herself.
But Strand wasn't far from the Abigail.
No. So they must have driven the Abigail around a little bit to try and see if they could find him. Right. And then she probably was like, "I'll go get him."
Yeah.
Which is interesting because woman upper body strength versus a guy.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if maybe just we didn't see the negotiation that happened there, but I wonder if it was like Luis was like, no, I'll keep an eye on the boat and the people, and why don't you
go
fierce
strength.
mother, go get, he might have even thrown out like if you think we're going to go get your family and you're going to not help get Strand back on the boat, you know, if you can get Strand back on that boat, then maybe we'll think about going after your people. Interesting.
So did you have any questions or comments or theories on this episode?
I didn't, but we've got to at least bring up, because it was discussed on Talking Dead, and it was definitely something that was a question, which was, how did Alicia says that she didn't give out names and details.
Right.
And we believe her because we heard not everything she said to Jack, but most of it. And
I also think, too, that Alicia would have kind of had an, oh, shit, I'm sorry. Like, I totally fucked up face on her. And she was like, we didn't talk about that.
Plus, she was owning up to so much.
Right.
Like, she was like, I did this, let me
Right.
fix it, was one of her things she said in
Right.
the episode. So she owns up to the fact that she goofed in giving him too much information, etc. So, but then on Talking Dead, Chris Hardwick threw out a different theory of who he thought would have given the information.
Yeah, he thought that maybe Strand knew these people.
Yeah, like there was a connection.
Previous.
But then Yvette Nicole Brown, smarty pants.
She's so smart.
She's so smart. Hello. She
Yvette
says
Nicole Brown, please come on our show.
Yeah.
I would love to talk with you about Fear the Walking Dead and Walking Dead.
She started a whole new notebook, man. She got to have a whole new notebook for this show.
I love her so
She's
much.
adorable. And she made the comment that it's got to be Alex, that it's got to be that they cut Alex
totally
free.
agree.
And it makes total sense. I mean, there's so many things they have to make leaps for. You know, this person totally knows that person and whatever. And that's kind of a leap. Whereas this one is more, it seems more realistic. Here's this person who was attached to the boat, and then they just like cut. And if they were already in pursuit of the boat, then
it would make total sense that they find him and be like, who are you people?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah, and Alex knew enough about them. She met Daniel.
Well, she heard them all calling each other names.
Yeah.
You know, they
and even if she didn't remember, Jake is there too, and all he can do is listen. So he might have recalled some names, and we don't know. So I think that's highly probable that's
completely.
And we were talking. That was our question last episode, I think, when we were like, I can't believe that they would have set up.
They would put all this time and effort into such a really awesome character and not use her again.
Right. So we were talking about whether or not Alex would come back again. And this would be a great way for that to happen.
I think that'd be great to have, especially because it would be interesting too if they chose to keep Travis, because maybe Alex told him like, no, Travis was the nice one. He was the one who gave us water and everything like this. Strand's the one who cut our line. Yeah. He's the asshole. Yeah. So if Travis were to maybe run into Alex again, what would they talk about? Like, would he apologize? Would she be mad at him, even though it wasn't his call? He wasn't the one who did it, but, guilty by association.
Exactly.
Almost.
It's kind of hard, Totally.
Yeah.
I just had a couple of funny observations. First of all, I loved when they were shipping Strand and Abigail on the thing. They said Strandagale.
Strandagale.
I love that. Wrote it down. But just me personally, we were joking last episode when we were talking about when Travis was going around when he had the gear on and was working underneath the boat, that whole like bloop 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 when he got worried, and I brought up the Jaws scene with Ben Gardner's head, and literally like an hour before Fear the Walking Dead came on, I was just scrolling through Instagram, and Greg Nicotero, who everybody who watches Walking Dead knows who he is. His Instagram is fantastic. If you're not following Greg Nicotero's Instagram, you're missing out on life.
Absolutely.
Just some of the pictures that he shares of like some of the Walker like creations and the work that goes behind them is just incredible. So he shared a picture of this guy who had created the fake head for Ben Gardner for that scene in Jaws. It was literally like right before, and I was like, seriously, what are the odds? And okay, but something that's more show specific, which I think is something that we could talk about in later episodes, like this is just, it's more like a comment, but we could sort of track the progress, is on Talking Dead. the guy who plays Strand, who I can't remember his name right now, he made a comment, and I kind of agree with it, is that he's like, Strand and Maddie are more alike than you think. So I think if that's something that that's sort of something that we could sort of track, is like, you know, will there be a time where like Strand becomes a little less, you know, out there, and like Maddie's a little strong or whatever, but just sort of track the two of them together and just be like,
well, because they mention it because of what Maddie ends up saying to the pregnant lady, and like they're like, she went full on Strand.
Yeah, exactly.
Like some of the, she was brutal.
I know, it was rough. So rough.
It was so interesting though. And I agree with that Maddie is more like Strand than not.
Which is probably why they don't get along, because they say that, is that people that have very like personalities, sometimes they just don't get along because they see themselves reflected in each other.
Yes,
yeah, exactly.
So much.
And my only observation, I was going to say it last week, but now I'll say it again, they have to stop having Navy commercials during this show. Because every time I'm forwarding, I'm like, oh, water and boats. Ah, shit. It's just another Navy commercial. Anyway, that's all I had for like comments about the show.
How about next week?
So next week, we got the scenes at the end of the episode were very
frightening.
To me. Yeah, there's a lot of moved really fast as usual.
They're being held in captivity.
Yeah, there's like bars and like and stuff like that, and so they're not being held. They're in essence they're together, but it's some kind of jail, some kind of setup where they're, you know, basically in jail.
Right.
Yeah.
The little snippets from, I think, Talking Dead were more interesting. We got to see Daniel conducting yet another interrogation.
Yeah.
Wonder how this one's going to go.
Yeah.
What did he put? Was that iodine or something that he put on the
I don't know, but whatever it is, it burned, I'm sure.
Burned like shit.
Yeah, so that's going to be fun. I mean, good luck if you've got a secret to keep and you're around Daniel, because, oh my God,
he'll get it out of you. And I don't think, I mean, Reed looks really young. I know that they cannot be that hardened of criminals only a week and a half into the apocalypse yet, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, he was probably not the best kid before the apocalypse.
Yeah.
And I believe Connor's his brother.
Yeah.
So, you know, and Connor obviously must have done something weird or not legal before the apocalypse. Who knows?
Who knows?
But all I know is,
I can't wait to find out more about them.
I don't think this kid, being as young as he is going to be able to outlast Daniel.
Yeah, I don't think so.
A military dude wasn't even able to outlast Daniel.
Yeah, no shit.
Don't think this kid's going to be able to.
Not gonna happen. Sorry, dude.
So I do think Daniel will probably get the information that he wants if dude doesn't die first, because he does have a crowbar, I think, through his liver right now.
Right. Odds are he's gone, but will he die slow, fast? No. Right. Do we really want a walker on the yacht? No. I'm saying no.
That's really it for this episode, guys. You can always reach us on all of our social medias: Facebook, Aim for the Head Podcast, Twitter at AFTH Podcast. We're also on Instagram, Aim for the Head Podcast, and our hashtag is hashtag AFTH Podcast. And I literally did the hashtag symbol with my fingers.
Just in case you could see it.
And YouTube. We are up on YouTube in case you prefer listening to us that way. We will upload at the same time that we upload anything else. You can search for Aim for the Head Podcast. And we're right there. I believe that our actual little user is AFTH Podcast, but if you search Aim for the Head Podcast,
it'll pop it right up.
You can get us there.
Yep.
That is, as always, our email address, aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And if you are looking for anything else, we do have a blog where we post everything. You can find that and all of this other information on our Facebook. So be sure to look for us there.
Yeah, and we will see you next week for episode 5. Had a great time this week, and I'm Diana.
And I'm Julie.
See you next week.
Thanks for listening.